Good evening. This is a video about food security. I did a video previously about food security and why it matters. In this video I want to go into a little bit more detail as to why we need to be worried about food security. Okay, well, first of all, I'm not a prepper. And if you are a prepper, you're probably not going to learn anything new from this video, because this is basic stuff for basic beginners. Also, I'm pretty much doing this video just as a regular guy, as a father, as somebody who wants to get the message out there. That all is not as it seems. One of the main issues that I have with society today is that for the last sort of 20-30 years we've lived in a world of abundance here in the West. This is but largely due to the West being the richer part of the world, and also a lot of people forget that one of the reasons we now have this consumer society is because it's what was portrayed as better than being communism, and therefore it was also a weapon. The fact that you and I could eat whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted, and we could earn plenty of money and buy whatever we wanted, was a weapon against communism. Now, one of the interesting things about that mentality is that since 1991 and the fall of communism, the world has got a much more dangerous place. And it's also, one of the areas is that food has become much more expensive. It continues to get more expensive. And I honestly believe in 2012, late 2012, 2013, moving into 2014, we're going to be seeing some serious food spikes price-wise. Why do I think this? Is this conspiracy theory? Well, in a way it is a conspiracy, I suppose, conspiracy theory, but it's also conspiracy facts. You can look at, there are many reasons why food prices are going to increase. And you might notice I'm going to say, I haven't said if, I said will. Well, they are going to increase. And it could be any number of reasons, but there are a few reasons which are already in the mainstream news which says to me that this is too big to hide. And if it is too big to hide, that means it's going to cause us some serious trouble down the road. The United States, North America, is the world's largest grain supplier, and they're already only halfway through their current crop season, and they are already estimating about 50% of losses. So that'll equate to probably 60 or 70% increase next year for the price of grain. What does that mean for you and me? Well, on the whole, not much at first, but when that starts to dribble through the food chain, like for example 80% of the world's animals are fed on grain mixed in with other nutrients and things like that, but the mainstay of the diet is grain. So you're going to see big meat increase, prices increase, dairy products increase, because obviously they all come from animals and animals need to be fed. Russia are also having major crop issues due to unusual weather patterns. Asia, have had unseasonable flooding throughout the whole region, and that will be increasing price for rice next year. And these are just the things that we know about. These are just the crop failures that have been so big that we've been unable to hide them. The other factor here is oil. Now, Libya is continuing to have major issues for security. You've got the US trying to pull out of Afghanistan next year, which could destabilise that region. and you know, you've also got what's going on in Syria. You know, if you have a war in Syria, which is a massive possibility now, you know, you are going to see oil prices rocking. And again, you know, look, ships, aeroplanes, trains, cars, lorries, they all use fuel. Therefore, if the fuel price goes up, the price of moving food goes up. Therefore, the price of food goes up. It just staggers. Boom, 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 boom. Now, what I basically want to talk about in this video, obviously that's the scenario, and that is something I believe that is going to be happening next year. What can we do about it? Well, first of all, you know, one of the things I will say to you is that, again, I'm not a prepper, but I am starting to look at hoarding food for very serious reasons. For them reasons, you know, that I just laid out. I mean, I'm a father. I've got 2 children. I've got a wife. I've got a family to provide for. So it makes sense to me to be buying, you know, rice, beans, dried goods that can last a couple of years, so that next year, if food prices do increase, my household food prices will stay relatively stable. Now, obviously, you can't have long-term storable meat, and you know, in the sense that we have it today. I mean, you can dry and cure meat to make it last for many months, but really, you know, meat is a luxury. Dairy products are luxuries. You know, what we need to be worrying about are things like vegetables. You know, things like grain, rice, flour. You know, because at the end of the day, the shop might not be there at the end of your road. It might not be able to provide you with bread. You know, so what do? You get the flour out, you get your yeast out, and you knead it and you make your own bread. You know, I mean, you can only look back 60 years, which is not long at all. You know, my grandparents were making their own bread. My mum, when the 1950s and 60s, was making her own toys. You know, so we are not that far beyond that kind of lifestyle. So to think that it cannot return to that would be both naive and stupid. One of the beautiful things about buying long-term storable food today is that you lock in today's prices. Now, historically, food prices don't go down, so therefore, even if you bought it today and you know the food crisis didn't come in a year's time, and you know, you are not losing money. It's not like buying gold and silver. Yeah, you will not lose money. Now, if, say for example, the financial crisis does happen, and you do have food, you have an abundance of food, you know, that is something you can use as a bargaining chip. You know, it's something that you could, like, for example, if I got a fresh loaf of bread, and the family across from me have got something like light bulbs, and disruption, you know, to the supply chain is severe enough that I can't get hold of light bulbs, you know, and they're hungry, and I offer them a loaf of bread, they will give me whatever I want. Yeah, if I offer them a cup of rice that could possibly feed them for a week, you know, they will give me whatever I want. I mean, it is a bargaining chip. You know, currencies are whatever people find, you know, mutual, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, you can use anything as a currency. I can use a cup of rice as you would use gold today, you know, in that kind of scenario. Now, that's worst case scenario. That's what preppers call SHTF, when the shit hits the fan. You know, I'm not expecting that kind of scenario, but what I'm guaranteeing you is that in a few years' time, whether it be 1 year or 2 years, you know, you're going to see your food prices double, maybe even triple. So the best thing you can do, and I can do, is to get the basics of our diets, which can be dried, which can be stored. You know, so what kind of things am I talking about? Tin food. Tin food is fantastic because it can last for a generation if it's not used. Rice, as I've already said, beans, grain, dehydrated foods, dehydrated tomatoes and vegetables, things that can be rehydrated and then cooked with. You know, and also we've got to start thinking about gas. What happens if the gas supply gets switched off? What are you going to cook with? It's all great having all these foods, but if you can't cook with them, you know, there are options available. There are solar powered stoves. There are sun powered cooking pots and stoves, things like that. You can also use coal. You know, to, like for example, one of the old ways of cooking things was to dig a pit. You dug a pit a few feet deep, and then, like say for example, if you have a potato, you could wrap that in foil, put that within the coal, and that would act as an oven. But you know, in that kind of scenario, you don't want to be bringing attention to yourself. So things that don't provide smoke will be your best option. So for example, gas stoves, such as camping gas stoves. They're brilliant because you can put them on a kitchen table or any surface and use those. You know, and one of the things I haven't mentioned yet is water. Water is key. I mean, look at Mars. Without water, Mars is a dead planet. You know, water is our lifeblood. You can last 2 or 3 weeks without any food or a minimum amount of input of food. You can't last more than 2 days without water. And especially if you have to do any physical exertion, you know, you're looking a day. Now, dehydration sickness is probably one of the most horrific things you will ever experience. A vast majority of us have experienced a certain degree of dehydration sickness, what we call hangovers. Yeah, believe it or not, a hangover is that's what it is. Your brain has swelled, which is what causes the headache. You have a lack of water, so you know, you get dizziness. You can get you know, some of the severe cases are severe temporary blindness, disorientation, dizziness, unable to do basic tasks. You know, if you get dehydrated enough and you start to urinate blood, you are in serious trouble. You know, you're on death's door. Now you can reach that point in 3 or 4 days. No mess, 3 or 4 days, and that is with no physical exertion. Yeah. So water is extremely important. Now, my water supply situation is nowhere near adequate, and I will be addressing that. So what you need to also be doing, if you can afford it, water filtration system. If you can't afford it, things like iodine tablets, go to your local camping store, speak to them about purification tablets for water. They will be able to explain to you better than I can what would be best. Now, what I would also suggest you do is you can get these from like 99p stores or anything like that. As soon as you hear there's a massive disruption, say for example, comes up on the news that there's a financial disaster, you know, you can get these flat pack 10 litre canisters, and you literally, as you fill them up, they inflate with water, and they're absolutely genius. You could probably have 20 of these in your house, each holding 10 litres each. As soon as you hear trouble is brewing, you can then fill those up with water from the tap before the water starts to and then what I would then suggest you do is obviously the oldest ones used first. Get a rotation system. Make sure each one is numbered so you know the date that you put them in. Other options you can have. I mean, also bottled water. Keep a healthy supply of bottled water. But that water is sealed. So therefore, if you can use the tap water first, yeah, you can last a lot longer. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be going to any refugee camps, because that's one of the first things that they're going to set up. They're going to set up refugee camps to try and save as many people as they can. They're going to say, hey, look, we've got water, we've got food, come and see us, and we're going to save you. Well, I say to you, go online, go on the internet, look at these Sudanese refugee camps. And this is with the Western world to help. You look in Africa and see those camps that they've got. Now imagine in a kind of scenario I'm talking about. Yeah, the US, Russia, China, Japan, Australia, Britain, France, Germany, all the usual names will all be having their own trouble and will not be helping each other. They'll be helping themselves. So no one will be coming to help them. So once you're in that refugee camp, you're stuck. My suggestion to you is avoid the initial chaos. Have at least 3 months worth of food and water in your house, and the ability to cook that. Because I can tell you now, as which was quite nicely put by another prepper that I often watch on YouTube. If it takes more than 90 days to sort out, it's not going to get sorted. It's that simple. But you must make sure you have enough. Ignorance is bliss, but it will also get you killed. It's nice to think that society is going to continue, and I hope it will do. It's nice to think that the police will always be there to keep us safe, and I always hope so. It's nice to think that food will always be on the shelves at the end of the shop, and I hope it will continue. But, as you have seen, these large corporate institutions are hell-bent on defrauding us and breaking us back into poverty. We can help slow that decay down by making sure that we all go back to the 1940s, 1930s style mentality. The British were famous for make, do and mend. We need to return to that. Basic skills such as sewing, such as first aid, such as maybe even possibly having to kill, skin and gut a rabbit. I mean, little things like that in the future could save your life. Now these are skills that you could learn, you could do on the free time. We live in an unprecedented time of human history, and in the sense that knowledge is for the first time freely available to anybody. Now, reading and writing is no longer an excuse. You're watching my video, you don't need to read and write. You've got YouTube. I mean, I've seen videos on here that teach you how to peel an onion, for Christ's sakes. There are videos on here for literally everything. Utilise that, because that may not always be there. We have to start learning now. And as I said, okay, great. If everything gets sorted out in 2-3 years time, and you've got this giant supply of rice, so be it. Just means you haven't got to buy rice for 6-7 months. Fantastic. Use it up at your own free will, Also pastas, beans, things like that. I mean, there are much more detailed preppers out there than myself. I'm literally just getting started in the whole thing. But what I wanted to do was make a video for people like me, people who don't know what prepping is, and say to you that you have a responsibility to your family, to your children, and to yourself. Sitting there after SHTF and saying, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, I could have done this, I could have done that. None of that will save your life. What will is knowledge. If you don't have the money to prep, there is a bundle of free information available online. You know, you've got things like the SAS handbook, which you can get in your local library. You know, again, utilise all this free information, because as the banks have shown us, we cannot trust the corporate industries with our, you know, our safety. You know, yes, they have ethics, codes of conduct, things like that, but in SHTF, that's not going to be the case. They're going to have profit. And if they turn around to you and say, well, okay, you can work for 10 hours a day and I will give you a cup of rice and a bowl of water, and that is it. Now, you're starving. You're not going to say no. You're going to say, okay, I'll take it. And they will work you to death. Now, if you don't think this is possible, look back in history. Look what the Romans did. Look at what the Parthians did. You know, where they had slave miners and things like that. Don't think that society is too big to fail, because it isn't. It is actually a house of cards. You take away cards from the bottom, and that house becomes very fragile, and it can quite easily just fall down. It really is that simple. Like, for example, you know, we live in a society where we have 1 to 2 days of food and water supply at any one time in the supply chain, because this is a cheaper way of running things. Okay, well, that sounds well and good, but you know, the issue there is with that is, well, what happens if, say for example, the Suez Canal, let's say for example Egypt and Israel go to war like they did in the 1960s. You know, okay, that was a 5-day war or a 6-day war. What happens if that turns into a 5 or 6 year war? Yeah. What happens if Syria blows up to a full-blown conflict and the Suez Canal gets closed? You know, for 2-3 weeks we've got no food supply, because all them ships have to be redirected around the Cape, you know, to South Africa, and come out round the long way. You know, I was watching the news today. 6 vessels last year alone were hijacked off the coast of West Africa. So if you think we increase the convoys through there, yeah, you increase piracy. It's that simple. Yeah. So what I'm saying to you is do not rely on the food chain. Do not live on a day-to-day basis. Make sure you've got 2-3 weeks, but I would say personally minimum 3 months. You know, if you've got enough space to do it, a year's supply. Yeah, because I can tell you now, if the House of Cards does fall, within a year, millions will be dead. Millions. And just make sure that you're not one of them. Make sure your children are not one of them. Yeah. There are many, many, many ways that this could come to pass, and I don't want any of them to happen. I have children and I want them to grow up in a safe world. But you know, we've been living in the West, we've been living in a bubble. And in 2007, 2008, that bubble came close to bursting. Now, they are trying to shore it up, they are trying. And here's another thing. Yeah, this is what I was going to say. Yeah? Austerity measures. Now, let's say, for example, the food supply hasn't been disrupted. Let's just say, for example, that food prices are so high that you can no longer afford them. Yeah? You'll still starve to death. There'll be food riots, but there'll be massive political crackdowns. Yeah? So look, just look around you. look around, see how fragile the system is, and just say, you know what? Actually, it's common sense to have a couple of months' worth of supply of food in my cupboards. You know, not to have to rely on the centralised system for at least 3 months. You know, not to have to go with my hand out saying, please sir, can I have some more, like they did in Oliver Twist. You know, you don't want to be in those situations. You don't want to be in those camps. They're dangerous, and you know, they're harsh places. So please, if you could just do anything, take my advice. Just get, you know, it doesn't have to be much. When you go shopping, put an extra couple of tins of, you know, tin fruit, tin vegetables, you know, tin beans, dry beans. Yeah, sorry about that. Right, can't remember exactly where I was, but yeah. Basically, the point I'm just trying to make is that, you know, in the next coming years, regardless of what happens in the world, food prices are going to increase. You can lock in today's prices, you know, for a good 3 or 4 months after the SHTF, you know, happens. But also, even if that, you know, if it's nothing that serious, but there's just like a 1 week supply, you know, hiccup in the food supply, you know, you are going to you're going to be in a much better position. You know, healthy, you know, a lot healthier, stronger than those people around you. You know, because yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and say you should do this, you should do that. What I'm really basically saying to you is, you should look at this. You should look into that. You should be more aware. You should take opportunities when they arise. Like, for example, if your local supermarket is doing buy one get one free on shampoos, yeah, buy 3 or 4 batches. Yeah, you know, I mean, my wife does this already. You know, it's common sense. Now, common sense ain't all that common in this world, but I'm telling you, it is common sense to turn around and say, oh look, you're doing 3 for 2s on this. Yeah, let's buy some extra, because the deal's probably not going to be there tomorrow. You know, what the point I was like making before as well. You don't have to actively go out and say, oh, we're going to buy all this food, you know, we're going to buy 6 months supply of food, and work out how many calories we're going to have, this, that, and that, and taste. All you need to do is every week when you go out and you do your shopping, you know, you get a few extra bits and pieces, a few extra tins, a few extra bags of dried pasta, you know, and you will find that will add probably a few pounds, maybe £10 to your weekly food bill. But what you will also find is that your cupboards will be stocked up to the rafters with food that could be used for an emergency. And also bear in mind, there are foods you can buy in tins which will be nutritious and will help your body, but will also not require cooking. Baked beans are one of these things. They may not taste very nice cold, but you can eat them cold, and they're very, you know, they're very nutritious. You know, tinned fruits is another one. It doesn't need to be cooked. Spam, you know, you've got meat in a can. You know, these are all things which in today's society we forget and we go, ooh, it's disgusting. But look at where they come from. Look at why they were developed. Yeah, tinned fruit, spam, you know, beans in a can. Or in fact, tinning things in the first place was a war effort. Yeah, because food could be shipped and supplied over long distances and kept fresh. It was not always the most nicest tasting thing in the world, but sod it, if it keeps you alive, you know. What's taste? I'd eat dog shit if I thought it'd keep me alive if I was starving to death. Although I don't advocate that, because it wouldn't. It would probably kill you. So don't do that. But the point is this: is that you will, when that comes down to it, you're not going to turn around and say, "Oh, well, I don't want that can of spam today because, you know, although I haven't eaten for 3 days, it doesn't taste very nice." You know, you're going to say, "Give me that, and I'll eat it with my fingers." The Romans thought that Rome would never fall. Yeah, the Greeks probably thought the same thing about their cities. You know, Byzantium thought the same. You know, Constantinople, as it was known then. All of these kingdoms and empires fell. It's a natural progression. Every single empire that's ever created falls. The empire of capitalism has peaked, and it will fall. Now, whether it falls and is replaced by something else, or whether it falls into chaos, remains to be seen. But the simple fact is that nothing can withstand time. Now, I think we're coming to a point in the road, a fork in the road, where it'll either we will return to a feudalism type state, or we will be, you know, we'll come up with some new concept. You know, like for example, after World War II, it was capitalism and communism. You know, ideologies. But whatever the case may be, wherever it leads, it's your responsibility to make sure you have enough now to supply you then. Yeah. So, all I'm saying to you, mate, guys, girls, whatever. Yeah. Research, research, research. This will save your life. Okay. Well, that's what I'm going to say on the subject tonight. And alright, keep it real.